So I want to talk today about a passage that is very well known. You've probably heard it. You're probably familiar with it. You could tell the story. It's a parable that Jesus told. It's very simple, completely well known in religious circles. At the same time that it's completely well known, I think that in church world that I've been a part of, that I've seen, it is completely and totally ignored from an application standpoint. It's believed from a that's what Jesus said standpoint. It is believed that's the way Jesus acts, kinda, but it's totally ignored from an application standpoint for for the church. I want to mention a place to talk for a minute, not because probably the people that are watching this don't even live in this area, so a place to talk is not the. I'm not trying to recruit you to a place to talk, but this is just kind of our little banner at the top of the website. It says you can change your family, change your community, change your world. A place to talk. Doesn't say .net there, but anyway, the the reason I bring up a place to talk is because I've told people all along that that a place to talk really is a place to talk. And so I'll start a conversation kind of like this one, but instead of it just being me talking, I'll start a conversation and we'll lead a little bit into it, and then I'll give places to ask questions, or I'll ask questions and I'll get feedback, or I'll ask people to come and to write their thoughts on the board, or they could text their thoughts to me. But whatever, I'm trying to do everything I can to get people to talk, because I believe that church, real church, is not about a sermon, but it's about a community. It's about a community, about people doing life together, people talking together. Well, there's been seasons at a place to talk where all kinds of different things have happened. Some seasons have involved some seasons have involved times where somebody kind of raises their hand every few minutes, and they're asking question after question, and they're arguing, they're argumentative, they're not really paying attention, they're searching scripture, trying to find something to argue about, and you can tell they're not paying attention, and then they'll start back at their argument 5 minutes after we've kind of changed the subject, and it can be annoying, and it can be a pain in the butt. And then other times there's people who are very needy, and they're not that argumentative person, but they're constantly asking questions about themselves, and they're constantly sharing their struggles and their story, and it doesn't happen all the time. In fact, for the most part, a place to talk is a very healthy communication. But there are different times where different people bring their needs into the group, and there's this temptation from the bigger part of the group to say, somebody shut them up, somebody stop them. And I have to say over and over and over and over and over and over, we can't do that. We can't, we can guide them, and we can love them, and we can try to bring them back into the subject, and we can try to move forward in the conversation, but we can't just ignore them or stop them, because when we do that, we're missing the entire principle of community and church. When you're in a family and you've got a newborn baby, and so there's a mom and a dad and a 10-year-old and a 2-day-old. The 2-day-old is going to get a lot of attention from the whole family. And then sometimes you have a family and it's a mom and a dad and a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the mom gets the flu. And so the whole family has to turn and give their attention to the mom sometimes. And usually in most families, the way it works is mom has the flu and she's still serving the whole family. But you get the idea. What has to happen in a family, in a community, is the needs of the group sometimes are sacrificed for the needs of the individual, whether it's the child or the sick person. You have to do this. And there's always this fear, what will this do to the church? I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking about how often in the church world we have this idea that when somebody's in need, we have to help them, but we can't help them if it's going to sacrifice the need of the body. And so the attitude is always, yeah, sometimes there's a person that's in need, and we need to serve them, but we can't forsake the family to do that. This is an article about how pastoral care stunts the growth of most churches. I would argue here that the problem's not pastoral care. It's not pastoral care. The problem is the pastor. It says, I'm sure there are a few leaders who want to keep their churches small, don't care about growth, but most small church leaders and pastors I meet actually want to reach more people. They want to see their mission fully realized. They hope and pray for the day when they can reach as many people as possible in their community. But that's simply not reality. The Barna Group reports the average Protestant church size in America as 89 adults. 60% of Protestant churches have less than 100 adults in attendance. Only 2% have over 1,000 adults attending. As a result, the dreams of pastors of most small and even mid-sized churches go unrealized. Why? He outlines 8 reasons that churches never break the 200 attendance mark in another post. But today, he drills down deeper on the one thing that kills almost every church pastor, and it's pastoral care. Basically, they say that a pastor, he goes on to say that a pastor can minister to all the needs, visit the families, do the pastoral care for 30 or 40 people. But when it gets to 80 or 90 or 200, 230, they can't do it anymore. The max they can do is around 200. And so what happens is they grow by doing good pastoral care to 200, and then it drops back down to 100 because the pastor can really only care for 100 people. Here's what I want to scream. This is not the role of a pastor. Heck, we shouldn't even have the pastor idea at all. Churches should be following Jesus. Jesus should be our pastor, not some individual. And so what has to happen is this has to be a church thing. This has to be a community thing. Church ministry, pastoral care, those kind of things have to be done by everybody. Everybody has to be involved. When somebody's sick, then everybody has to care for them. When somebody's in the hospital, the church takes turns visiting. They not that like we sign up and take turns. We just care about each other. When I have a friend in the hospital, I go see them. And so it's not one person can't have an intimate relationship with 1,000, but one person can have an intimate relationship with their 30 or 40 that's a part of that 1,000, and they just keep doing life. Here's the passage we want to talk about today. Luke chapter 15, verses 3-7 says this. So he told them this parable, saying, what man among you, if he has 100 sheep and has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open pasture and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. When he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I tell you that in the same way there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. Here's the idea I want us to consider about this passage. We've said for a long time, I think most churches would say that this is Jesus' style. Jesus is constantly going after the lost. He's going after the one out there on the wrong road. But while we do that we believe that in theory, and we believe that about Jesus, we don't do this in practice. Our churches are set up in such a way that we have a church service on a Sunday morning and everybody comes in, and we work hard to make sure everybody's quiet so that one speaker can teach, and he teaches in such a way that might appeal to the largest masses, and there's very little to no conversation. There's no interaction. It's all about the 99. The music is built for the 99. The prayer time's built for the 99. The sanctuary is built for the 99. It's built for the crowd to listen to one person and to get as much as they can from that one person in a group setting. It's not built for individuals. Here's an article by Tom Rainer about 15 reasons your pastor should not visit much. And it's always going back to this idea that we have to structure churches in such a way that we appeal to the 99, we appeal to the group, to the mass on Sunday mornings, and then the pastor has to do the roles of ministry and visiting, and that if he visits, it takes away from sermon prep, and which again, the whole sermon concept is built around serving the big group. Here's another example. Here's a Easter Sunday morning. On an Easter Sunday morning, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago here in the area, this kind of hit the news. This family or mother and a son with I can't remember if, does it even say it here, cerebral palsy, goes into this church, and at the end of the music, the kid is, the kid's somewhat has trouble completely controlling his arms, and he does something like during the service, and what happens is they come around and they take him out. They move him to like a cry room, and they say he has to be escorted out. Why does this kid have to be escorted out? Because the church is designing their weekend worship services around the large group. They only are concerned about the 99, very less concern about the individuals. What I'm asking us, what I'm saying, is let's start reading Luke 15, the parable of the lost sheep. Let's start reading it not as just something we think about or consider, but let's start reading it as something we apply. What if we applied it in our church group? What if we applied it on Sunday morning? What if we applied it on other days of the week? What if we stopped trying to build the perfect worship experience? What if we stopped trying to build the perfect Sunday morning show, and we came together and we tried to figure out ways to meet one another's needs in conversation and in teaching, and we tried to design the whole thing around individuals? Because I believe we can hear from God from one another. We can hear from God while we're serving one another. We can hear from God while we're thinking with one another. I think we ought to apply Luke chapter 15, verses 3 through 7, the parable of the lost sheep, not just to our theology about Jesus, but to our action and our practice and our processes on Sunday mornings.